Greetings and hotep, brothers and sisters, and welcome to this week's broadcast of Men. This is your host, Taki S. Ratan, streaming live and in black from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Men Think is dedicated to the higher order, ancestral, and cultural essence of the black man's spirit, thought, and scholarship. We are indeed blessed to have with us this March 21st, 2013 evening, again, Sister Anna McMillion from Mississippi Gulf Coast and Brother Carlos Carr from Omaha, Nebraska, pairing with us again for this part 3 and final installment in this series on black family trends. Specifically, is the black family in worse condition today than it was in 1965? And I welcome you both again on Men Think.
Very good to be here, brother. Looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you so much once again.
Yes, ma'am. Share with our family a little bit about your background before we get into our thought of the day. Just want to share with our family again. You guys have been on with us at least 2 times within the past year, and it's very inspiring to have you all back again on this critical conversation. Sister Anna, start with yourself, please. A little bit about your background.
Well, first and foremost, I am a mother of 2. I am an educator. I am an inspirational tool, not only for our black women, but also for our black men, for our nation of people. I have my own company, which is called I Am. I globally network all over the world, getting like-minded brothers and sisters to connect and build together, not only within their businesses, but also within their organizations, within their communities. I am also a former UNIA ACL Division 466 from out of New Orleans, Louisiana, Division President. I am currently the Executive Chair to Team Pan-African Be Queen, which is actually the founder is Dr. Umar Abdullah Johnson. The movement IMIPAP, which stands for the International Movement for the Independence and Protection of African People. Not only do I do those things, but there are many other things in which that I do. My main focal point right now as we speak is to bring about the rise of the black woman and get a clear understanding and a balance within our community. That is my sole purpose.
Thank you. Brother Carr.
Well, I am the father of 3 sons and the grandfather of 10 grandsons. That's why I'm committed to do the things that I'm doing, is to try to provide some leadership for our communities within the future. I'm also affiliated with the Malcolm X Memorial Foundation right here in Omaha, Nebraska. That is the birth site of Malcolm X, right here in Omaha, Nebraska. I'm also involved, former member of the Kansas City chapter of the Black United Front. I'm also involved here locally with Community Radio Omaha, which is a group that is dedicated to bring community radio to the Omaha community. Hopefully, when we file for our license in October of this year. And again, because Malcolm is our shining black prince and our perfect example of manhood within the roles that I have seen through my lifetime, I have accepted Malcolm X as pretty much as the person that I emulate the most as far as a historical figure, and that is one of the main reasons I am involved with the Malcolm X Memorial Foundation right here, trying to help them develop the 15 acres of land that his birth site is a part of. Also, sending that example to our young men throughout our neighborhoods that Malcolm is the best example to follow if you want to develop into your full black manhood. Malcolm X is the guy to model yourself after.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I did have a quote by Akron Lynch from Brother Baruti. However, I keep a listing of quotes around me, And since, Brother Carlos, you spoke to Malcolm, I'm just going to pull this quote up. He says, look at yourselves, he's speaking to young people, he says, look at yourselves, some of you teenagers, students, how do you think I feel, and I belong to a generation ahead of you, how do you think I feel to have to tell you, we, my generation, meaning Malcolm's generation, sat around like a knot on a wall while the whole world was fighting for its human rights. And you've got to be born into a society where you still have to fight for the same thing. What did we do, meaning his generation, his adult generation, who preceded you? I'll tell you what we did, nothing. And don't you make the same mistake we made. I think that quote is quite fitting. Of course, he said that prior to somewhere between 1963 and 1965, in terms of where we are today, because today in 2013, perhaps that generation made the same mistake. In fact, did nothing in terms of addressing the ills that Daniel Patrick Moynihan spoke to 48 years ago in the Moynihan Report. Just give me your thoughts on that, Brother Carlos, before we get into the series.
Well, definitely, without a doubt, the quote that you just said is very, very true. We ended up making the same mistake. We didn't follow in on the things, particularly human rights. We didn't follow through on that area of human rights to make sure that rights were available to all human beings, and that our society reflects that. Therefore, we see ourselves today in a society where humanity is far removed from within our society. In many different levels of humanity, it's been removed. I just had a conversation with a sister before I got here who was just stuck on that whole money makes you mentality. And I had to correct her and let her know that money is a tool. Money is only a tool in this world for you to be able to acquire a purchase or do some of the things that you try to do in life. Money is not the thing that defines your success in this world. Your humanity is what defines you as a person. And as far as I'm concerned, also defines your success within this world.
Yes, sir.
I'll leave it right.
Thank you. Sister Anna, your thoughts? And again, he talks about human rights, but also we're speaking to our status as black people in America, where we were back in 1965, 63 to 65 when he was talking, and also where we are right now. Yes, ma'am.
Well, what I wanted to say, and foremost, what we have to remember is we were brought into this country not to succeed. We were not destined to succeed in this country. That's what we first have to remember. So everything and anything that comes against us is not for us to succeed, not for our children, not for our men, not for our women, not for our nation. It's not destined for us to succeed. We have to remember that when it comes from them. So not looking at a point of what is actually coming against us is by divine strategy. This is something in which that the energies from them have been working on to keep us at a certain level. So everything in which that you see is from an effect. There was a cause, and from that cause came an effect of it. This is something that was completely and totally strategically designed to keep us as a people from our greatness, because they understand, everyone understands who we are as a people.
Yes, ma'am.
They know this. They know from out of that one black gene comes all many nations. They know this. So at the same effect, like Brother Carl was talking about the sister that he had to talk to in pertaining to money, we have to also remember for the black woman, and I'm going to speak very shortly on this, but for the black woman, she was taken out of her home. She was placed in another man's home, in another woman's home. She was made to be the other woman. Not a woman of her choice, but she was made to be another another woman to someone else's man, period, point blank. He educated her. He fed her. He so-called gave her an affection that she thought was true love, but it wasn't, or some type of genuine humanity towards her, but it wasn't. That was control. That was to break up the black family. That was to start to break up the black family. That was to gain control because they understood that the black woman is that main source within that black community, whether we choose to look at it and understand it or not. But she is that main source. If you can get that black woman to rise out of the conditions that she is in, she's going to not only raise her children, but she's going to also raise her man. She's going to also raise her nation. That's where your rise is going to come in at. But see, the thing about it is we have so many conscious brothers and sisters that keep forgetting about the true essence of the black woman. We understand that the black man has his own right in his position that he is in. That is very true, very true. But you got to start looking at the focal point. The black woman is the first teacher. She is the first nurturer. She's the healer. So if you don't resurrect her, bring her back to life, breathe life into her, where you think your men, your children, your nation is going to go? Exactly where it has been. Nowhere. And instead it's decline.
Yes, ma'am. Wow. I need to take a breath just on that statement so I can just stay on point. And want to connect both in terms of Sister Anna and Brother Carlos, those points to our topic tonight. I took this off of a article that came out Sunday, March the 3rd, 2013, that said that the black family is worse off today than in the 1960s. They quoted a report released by the Urban Institute titled the same thing, The State of African American Families Worse Today than it was in the 1960s. And so what I did, since I have been a student of Daniel Patrick Moynihan for many, many years, I taught him in my education class at Springfield College. I am very much aware of his vision, his research. I support that. And so I wanted to, and since the report referenced Moynihan, I wanted to connect what he researched back in 1965, 48 years ago, with what is happening today. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. It will take about, hopefully, just 3 to 4 minutes to summarize as I'm looking at the clock in terms of pacing myself. To connect the current day destructive social trends, black on black crime, single-parent homes, fatherlessness, academic failure, joblessness, crime in our community, with the predictable findings 48 years ago in the November 1965 Moynihan Report, The Negro Family, The Case for National Action, which identified that the unstableness and distortion of the black community was due to the weakness of the Negro family at that time. Moynihan, spoke to what he called a tangle of pathology, listing juvenile delinquency, joblessness, school failure, crime, and fatherlessness. He said 48 years ago that juvenile delinquency, crime, school failure, joblessness, and fatherlessness would begin to turn on itself as a cycle and become self-fueling, self-generating, and self-destructive. Now, in 1950, according to Moynihan, the great majority of black children were born into two-parent homes, 85%. By the 1960s, 24% of black mothers were having out-of-wedlock births, or 25%, of black households had no father. This is where Moynihan began to take a look at what was happening in the black community and start the research. In Series 1 and Series 2, I spoke about how his report died, and the Johnson administration decided not to take it seriously. I won't do that tonight unless it's part of the conversation as we move forward. But Moynihan was correct. By 1974, in terms of his tangle pathology, beginning to feed upon himself. By 1974, a disproportionate number of African-American men were being sent to prison. By 1980, black fatherlessness had doubled. 56% of black births were to single mothers. In the central cities, that number was close to 65%. By 1990s, the majority of black women who did bear children were unmarried. By 2010, 72% of African-American children are born to unwed mothers. The number of African-American women married and living with their spouse in 1950 was 85%. By 2010, that number had dwindled to 25. In 1950 it was 85%. By 2010, that number had dwindled to 25%. Moynihan said that there is one unmistakable lesson in American history: a community that allows a large number of men to grow up in broken families dominated by women in a male-dominated society. That's my words in parentheses. Never requiring any stable relationship to male authority, never requiring rational expectations about or for the future. That community asks for and will get chaos. He said in terms of solution, and I'll close with this, that the answer is clear enough. 3 centuries of injustice have brought about deep-seated structural distortions in the life of the Negro American. At this point, the present tangle of pathology is capable of perpetuating itself without assistance from the white world. The cycle can be broken only if these distortions are set right. In a word, a national effort towards the problem of Negro Americans must be directed towards the question of family structure. The object should be to strengthen the Negro family so as to enable it to rise and support its members, as do other families after that. How the group of Americans choose to run its affairs, take advantage of its opportunities, and fail to do so is none of the nation's business. I do have some listings here of how that tangle of pathology has unraveled over the past 48 years, but I will get to that only if it fits into our conversation. Brother Carlos, why don't you start us off tonight? And from this point on, it's you and Sister Anna. What do you think? Where are we at?
Well, without a doubt, what you just described and what you just confirmed is definitely where we are right now. We're so far out of whack within our communities that the generations coming up behind us really don't see two-family or two-parent families in their future. I look at my sons, and of my 3 sons, only 1 out of the 3 has been married, although all 3 of them have been in long-term relationships, and I'm saying long-term, I mean longer than 5 years, and yet and still they have not married their current spouses. And a lot of this has to do with some of the other cultural phenomena that have hit since Moynihan's report, particularly what we call hip-hop culture. I have to, as a parent, and as I can see the work of my raising of my children now, I can see that hip-hop culture supplanted a lot of the teachings that I gave to my children. And yes, the thing of being popular and being a part of the kind of like when you were back in high school, and at the end of high school, before you graduated, the senior class always ran their, I call it the who was the most popular study, where you had the most likely to succeed. That's what the kind of thing that kind of took control of that generation that came behind me, is that they feel that hip-hop culture is the popular culture, and for you to fit in, you have to be popular in that way. Not looking at it, and let's take it the next step farther, because, Takia, you cannot omit the fact that the educational system was a part of this process.
Yes, sir.
started doing some independent research on the educational system, and I'm finding out that the educational system is designed to create drones, human drones. They want everybody to be the same. They don't want you to have any creativity. That's why you've seen arts drop out of school. That's why you see the playtime drop out of school. That's why you see civics and other classes like that drop out of the curriculum of our public school system. It's because they're literally stamping these children to all think and relate the same way. They do not want these children to be creative or individualistic or coming up with their own original thought. They don't want that to happen. So as we see all these things start to come through, and I'm just talking about my children's generation, okay? We know that our generation, and I believe, I don't know about the sister, but Taki, I know you're in about the same age group as myself, and I know our generation dropped the ball. We did not pass the 70s. We did absolutely nothing past the 70s to keep the movement strong and going forward. We sold out. By the time the 70s ended and the 80s rolled in, brothers didn't care about no power. They cared about a job and how they were going to, feed their families or whatever was going on. But a lot of that stuff that was going on during that time frame definitely started to break down within the generations that came after us. And do keep in mind, as I'm saying, we did very little to keep the struggle going.
So we made the same mistake that Malcolm talked about. We did by the time the end of the 70s came into the 80s, and that fits within the timeline that we've talked about in the past. Because I said that by 1984, everything we talked about in terms of Black Power old school was compromised, and by the time we get to 1987, it was gone. So we made the same mistake. We made the same mistake that Malcolm had actually told our generation not to make, and by the 1980s, we made that. Yes, sir, go ahead, please.
And there's another component of that, and I got to say this because the sister is absolutely correct. Brothers have totally dropped the ball in keeping the sister or bringing the sister back to her natural self. We have totally dropped the ball in that area, and I'm going to include myself in that. I remember back in the 60s and 70s and the 80s, even though there was a point of consciousness, particularly in the 70s and the 80s with me, but I was still stuck on stupid when it came to women. I figured that women had pretty much, you got to keep in mind, young man, 20, in the early 20s, so, you're setting out to find yourself in the world. And even with all that going on, I never looked at the sisters the way Sister Anna described where the sisters' place should be. I've never looked at it on that level. And as we move throughout that time frame of coming into the 70s to 80s, going into the 90s and moving forward, that consciousness was never recovered. That consciousness was never fed to me in that way, even though, without a doubt, I understood a sister's natural place within this world. I know she is the creator of this world. I know that this world came through her. I understood these things, but I did not connect bringing that sister back to that very pivotal point in our history where she had created this world and the world came.
Hello? Can you hear me, Carlos?
Yeah.
Sister, Brother Delani. Brother Delani?
This is Anna. I'm still on.
raise your hand so high. You have the most beautiful heart inside. Beautiful heart inside. Beautiful heart inside. And I want to thank you, 'cause you believed. You saw the best in me. Look past my inadequacies to show me who I didn't know I could be. Thank you, you set me free. From the road I was headed down, you turned my life around. Yeah. Listen, you are the one who didn't mind the grunt, head aching frustration that comes with trying to change lives, redirect the hurt inside, never knowing if you helped or just wasted your time. Well, I can't speak for them, don't know how much they received, but when it comes to me, let me tell you what you achieved. And I want to thank you, 'cause you believed. You saw the best in me. Look past my inadequacies. Show me who I didn't know I could be. Thank you, you gave me peace. When my feet are on solid ground and I'm freedom bound. Yeah.
Greetings, family. I'm sorry for the interruption. We had just a tap. There was some technical difficulty when Brother Carlos was in a very strong flow. I want to just take this opportunity to say, to make a statement to Carlos's point relative to his sons. And it's just a parallel point and not to that particular statement directly. But Kay Heimowitz said back in December 6, 2008, in an essay, The Enduring Crisis for the Black Family, and this was in 2008, she said that in some neighborhoods, two-parent families have vanished. In parts of Newark and Philadelphia, for example, it is common to find children who are not growing up, who are not growing up without their fathers, who are growing up without their fathers, but don't know anyone else who is living with his or her biological father or mother together. So we have a generation of children right now who are growing up without their fathers and don't know within their particular communities anyone else who is, in fact, living with their father in the home. Brother Carlos, did you want to, I'm sorry about that, did you want to close up your point before I go to Sister Anna?
For sure. And I was trying to wrap that up strongly by going back to the sister to at the points that she made at the opening of the show, that we have to restore the black woman to a rightful place in this universe. And if that doesn't happen, it's going to be very, very difficult to regain that balance that we need within our communities in order to grow and move forward. It is very important that we understand that balance within our community. We have to understand that you cannot, you just look at it in the natural state of things, or what some people call natural law. By natural law, it takes a man and a woman to create a child. Then by natural law, it takes a man and a woman to raise that child. They got to have equal parts of both in order to become solid, productive young people and young women and men, or young men and women when they grow up. I think it's very important that we understand that. The last thing I'm going to touch on real quick, and I'll let you pass it on to the sister, because I'm awaiting her response very much also, is that we have to understand that the biggest drop of the ball that we had during our lifetime was that cultural drop of the ball. We dropped our culture and has pretty much assimilated into what's called American culture. And we have bought into it hook, line, and sinker. This is a part of our destruction, and we need to understand that. the brothers before us, including Brother Malcolm, had tried to explain to us that Malcolm had a very popular saying when he says that we left our minds in Africa. He's trying to connect us back to where we are supposed to be. And I don't believe until we make that connection and make that connection by putting the sister back in her proper place, we will never begin to find our way out of the darkness. I think we will continue to be in the darkness and never see the day of light until those things happen. Go right ahead, sister.
Yes, sir. Sister Anna, please.
Well, I very much agree with Brother Carlos, and something that I've always said, even to you, Brother Taki, is the importance that we have to understand, as well as the balance that we have to have within our people, not only within ourselves, but also within our communities, within our nation. Everything is within divine order. Everything other than us. Everything has its own mate. Everything balances with nature, knows exactly when the time is, what it should do. Everything is submissive, except for us. But we have to understand where that started from and not excuse or bypass what we as a people went through and the different psychological tears and strains that we've had throughout the generations. It started then, but it never stopped. Every generation that came about continued on with that energy, continued on with that pain, continue on with that scar, continue on with that fear. Till this day, if you walk into a school and you have a school that is predominantly black, you bring a pink man or a woman, and I'm going to say it exactly like that, into that school, it is automatically, the children automatically now, at this day point in time in this generation, will look at that person as being the ultimate role model, as being the ultimate succeeder in life. If I can only just be just like this person. They cannot. We have completely and totally stripped our people of everything. There is no love for self, period. We are afraid to stand for what's right, even at any and all cost. And we have our brothers and sisters that are in the conscious community that know the truth, but they still bend. They're not willing to stand. It's okay if you have your hair in the natural hairstyle. It's okay if you walk around and you can talk about the comedic areas that are within Kemet. It's okay if we talk about the language. It's okay if we talk about the clothes. It's okay if we talk about the spiritual aspect of it. But how spiritual are we? We can say a lot of things. But we're not getting to the core essence of what we need to get to. And it is knowledge within self. First, we've got to turn around and we've got to assess and look at what is the problem? What is the issue? What is the pain? Can we recognize what the pain is? Can we recognize what the issue is? Once we recognize that, then where do we move from that point? Then we need to sit down and look at, well, how can I deal with this? What are the solutions that I can come up with? That I can start the process of healing. We are people that have not healed. Black women have not healed, no shape, form, or fashion. Black men have not healed, no shape, form, or fashion. And your children, it has been passed down to, and they are not healing.
They're growing into this. They're growing into this situation.
Right, and that's why the rise of suicide amongst our children is steadily climbing. Because now it has been a burden, and now it's been passed down to them to a point to where they don't know what to do. All they know is, I would rather be free than to be here.
Right. Brother Carlos, you had a thought.
Yes, it sounds what we're describing as more like a generational curse, because none of the generations have effectively dealt with the curse in order to break it, and it keeps getting passed from generation to generation to generation. Without a doubt, Sister Anna is directly on point with that statement. That is the problem within us. But of course, you don't know that you need to be healed until you realize that you're sick.
Right.
And that's the other problem that we have within our community, because most so-called black folks don't understand that we're sick. They don't understand that. They don't understand that the healer needs to come in, and we need to return to, as the sister said, that spiritual place. And I said spiritual purposely because we don't need to go to that religious place. That ain't took us nowhere yet.
No, it hasn't.
All right? And I'm not going to get into that conversation now, but we know the biggest power in the black community is the black church, but it hasn't took us to where we need to be truly free or liberated. It just has not taken us there. So without a doubt, I see these things as if the getting the message to our people to understand that, first of all, we are sick. Okay? I saw, I don't know if you guys heard of a gentleman by the name of Chris Hedges, who is a activist, a writer, and ex-Catholic priest, and he left the priesthood in order to pursue these other things that he also to marry his wife. But Chris Hedges is a white boy, a well-educated white boy, and he has broken down in the best language that I can pass on how we view our success, particularly when we measure that against President Obama.
Mm-hmm.
We are taking image over substance. And we have done this is again that generational curse. We have done this from each generation, passing it on to the next generation, that it ain't about substance, it's about your image. Can you become the president of the United States? Can you become the first black? Can you become the first this? That's the thing that we are settling into that has dwarfed our ability to understand that we are sick and in need of healing.
Yeah, I think that came out of. I think that came out of that part of that hip hop piece that you spoke of. You spoke of earlier. Yeah, I want you all to respond and react to one point about that Moynihan piece that I spent a lot of time on last Thursday. And again, this has to do with the point about substance. Again, Moynihan was saying that the object should be to strengthen the Negro family so as to enable it to rise and support its members as to other families, so on and so forth. President Lyndon B. Johnson, at first brought 110% into the Moynihan report. He gave a speech which he thought was one of his best speeches at Howard University as we go into, as we move into 1965. However, Johnson was attacked. Johnson's speech was attacked. Moynihan was attacked through Johnson's speech, and Moynihan came under attack through civil servants, through the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, the Children's Bureau, the liberal left, the liberal white left. People who attacked him, Congress of Racial Equality, Cora Floyd McKissick, said that it was not the Negro family that needed healing and or correcting, it is the system. Whitney Young said that the problem is not the Negro family, the problem is discrimination. What I'm saying, William Ryan said that Moynihan's position was blaming the victim and to keep responsibility and fault on the focus of the system. We had, if I may say we had the opportunity, or the country had the opportunity to set things straight and to do, in effect, a little bit of what Sister Anna was talking about, putting the responsibility back on the black community, responsibility back on the black family, back on the black man, to go back and to heal and to set things straight. That is what Moynihan focused on. However, your black civil rights leaders, the Congress of Racial Equality, the liberal whites, and the NAACP, all those folks jumped on this bandwagon to put the onus on the system, take it away from the black man, away from the black community, keep the black man and the black community irresponsible for handling our issues, and put the weight on the system to take care of us. And we have been in that cycle for the past 48 years since the Moynihan report. What do you all think about that?
Man. Well,
that's what happened. I mean, the black folk and the liberal left sold us out 48 years ago, which I maintain is one of the reasons why we're in the condition that we're in right now. Had the Moynihan report continued to be favored by Johnson, and had he moved that into his agenda, then I think we would be in another place right now, 48 years later. Yes, sir, please.
Oh, without a doubt. And the Moynihan report, the one thing that I have to really point out is that it is the system. It's kind of like you're trying to beat a crooked system. Is what we're trying to do, what the average African American is trying to do. They're trying to beat a crooked system. They're trying to play within a crooked system. And you know that anything that you become involved in that becomes a part of you and you start to internalize that, then that turns you into a crooked human being along the way. So you could see where we're getting derailed by these people. And again, we're going back to that image versus substance thing, where these people think it's more important for us to appear like we're accepted within white America rather than the substance of being accepted by white America. I have told people throughout my career that white folks respect you more when you're a part of, when you're celebrating who you are. And I found that out by just doing Kwanzaa programs. And when the white folks come out to the Kwanzaa programs, they're coming out to not only learn a little bit about what you got going, but they're also coming out to show their appreciation for your individuality as to who you are as a people. They respect that. In other words, in short, they respect that. We don't get that. So we try to play within this crooked system, turning us into crooked human beings, and then flowing that all back into this whole conversation where we're passing that on from generation to generation, and we're taking image over substance. I mean, it's a shame that that document has not become a part of black studies in a way to where I think Moynihan was right on point with his analysis and his proposed solutions to the problem. From everything that I've heard you said and then the things that I have read on Moynihan, I think he was dead on. Without a doubt.
Yes, sir. Sister Anna, responding to Brother Carr and your thoughts on how the Moynihan report was derailed and where that leads us today.
Well, anything that takes the focal point off of accountability that brings about a change within any nation of people is going to become a problem. It's going to become a hindrance. When you can get to the core part, the true essence of where you need to get to in order to make a actual change of something, that means when you change the actual inner part, then you change the mind, you change everything else, everything that's around it. You change the conditions, you change the environment, everything changes. So when understand that it causes a ripple effect, then of course the report that he had, he was taking it back to the core part, which is the family. I mean, we can't bypass the fact. We can sit here all day long and say the pink man did this, pink woman did this, we were brought here, we did this, we did that, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, you had a great-great-great-grandmother and a great-great-great-grandfather that went through it much harder than what we currently, these generations now, have actually gone through. They were able to hold it down. They were still able to maintain the family. It was still understood what mama's position was. It was still understood where daddy's position was. It was still understood where the children's position were. It was understood, and they were able to come through it. But at the same time they were actually able to come through it, we had that generation that come in. I don't like what I see. I want something different. I don't like this. Why did you put up with that? We had a tear. And I think I've talked to you about this as well, Brother Taki, but I explained that
Sure.
We had a tear in between the two. And we had one that didn't want to stay with the essence, the true tradition, to stay with the core. They wanted what was glitter and fancy and lights and action. I want to go over here. I don't want to stay over there. I don't want to do any more of this. But there was a deepening core that was there. There was strength that was there. There was stability that was there. And they left from that and went in a complete and total different direction. And in the process, look where you are today.
Yes,
Your
ma'am.
black women are not at the position where they should be. And until we start understanding, we read, doesn't matter how many books we write, doesn't matter how many times we march the street, doesn't matter how many times we boycott, doesn't matter about any of that. Until you start getting to the root, which means you need to get to the black woman, that's where your change is going to come about, is going with inside of her, getting her to understand her position and how important she is to this nation. Once you get through to her, everything else around you and her is going to change. You got to understand that. That's where your change is going to come in at. But if you keep pushing her to the side, you're not going to change. Your children are not going to change. Your men are going to continue to keep going the way they are. Your nation is going to continue to keep dwindling.
And dwindling is what we're doing. Brother Carlos, as we look at the time, we've got about 10 minutes. Why don't you start the conversation, and we'll bring this point back to Sister Anna. Why don't you start the conversation here in 2013? What, in your mind, do you think we need to do differently as we move forward to strengthen black unions that could go into strong black families? Your thoughts, please.
It's going to be a total return back to nature that's going to get us to really understand where we are today and how out of place we are today when you look at us in our natural state. Now, a lot of people will hear me say that, and the first thing that flashed to their mind is some African person in the jungle in Africa. That ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about getting back to the natural law, the natural way of thinking, the natural way of communicating and being involved with who we are as a people. I'm talking about us finding our way back to that spiritual place where we begin to understand that real food is not McDonald's, Burger King, or Pizza Hut. We need to get back to understanding that real entertainment is not BET or MTV or VH1. We need to get back to understanding that our real spirituality doesn't come from Salem Baptist Church or Moriah Baptist Church. Or that's not where we are. We need to get back to our true natural spiritual selves. Once we can get down to our spiritual, our natural selves, I think we can start to reflect on who we are as a people and can see the errors of our way and start to make those corrections within our community and our culture and within the way that we relate as black folks within ourselves. But I think that's where the starting point has to be, is getting back to that natural spiritual self and understanding the reality of true substance, true knowledge, true spirituality before we can get to the point of developing our true selves. And that's just my humble opinion, but that's where I think it is.
That's good. Appreciate it. Before I get to Sister Anna, in terms of where do we go, I just want to close my contribution. Where we are right now, 63% of youth suicides, and Brother Carlos mentioned this, are from fatherless homes. 90% of homeless children are from fatherless homes. 90% of runaway children are from fatherless homes. 85% of our children with behavior disorders that Brother Umar speaks about quite often are from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes. 75% of teen patients in chemical abuse centers are from fatherless homes. 85% of our youth in prison come from fatherless homes. Sister Anala, how do we turn this around? Your thoughts?
How do we turn it around is first we have to acknowledge that which we have an issue with, and that's self. That's first. We cannot move forward as a community, as a woman, as a man, as a nation. We cannot continue to think that we are going to move forward if we do not deal with what is currently hindering us. It is not that pink man. It is the own enemy within ourselves.
Yes, ma'am.
We were taken from our originating origin, our land. We were taken from that, and we were told that we were ugly, you will never amount to anything, you were dumb, you were stupid. We were told these things. Subconsciously, that had a true effect on us damagingly. We have to deal with our enemy that is within us first.
Definitely.
We have to do that. In order to do that, we have to be willing. We have to be willing and understand that it's not going to happen overnight. Just the way our condition currently is, didn't happen overnight. We have to understand that it's not going to change and come to the better overnight. But we have to also understand that we have to be in it for the long haul. You can't be in it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or a year and say, you know what? The heck with it, I'm done. It's too much work. Perseverance. We have to remember that. Balance. We have to remember that.
Could you speak a little bit more, just briefly, because you and I personally, we talked about this quite a bit, and Brother Carlos brought this up, and you brought this up earlier in your opening comments, the importance of balance, of black male, black female balance, please.
Well, I will say with that balance, we have to first understand, which is something in which that I told you, is that in order for me as a woman, for any black woman, to be able to elevate herself to the next level, spirit moving forward, knowledgeably, she has to first understand where the black man is to her, in what relation, what correlation is he to her. He is her inner core. That's who he is to her. He is the true essence within her. In order for her to be able to elevate herself and move forward, she has got to, one, understand who she is as a woman, and then understand who is her inner core. Her inner core is her man, is that black man. That is her inner core. So if I understand and I become balanced within myself, and I understand that what he is to me is my other part, and I balance that, then I'm moving forward. And that's vice versa for him. In order for him to move forward, he can be militant all day long. He can be in a struggle all day long. But until he understands that, yes, I am a man, but I also have the woman within me, I must balance her. See, this is where the love and the unity comes into place when it comes to black men and black women. Because once you start understanding how important she is to you, how important she is to him, and you say, I understand that both have to be balanced straight across the board, then you're able to build together as a unit. Then from your unit, you have your family. From your family, you have your community. From your community, I love this, you have your nation. It's a steady process.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You know me, Taki.
I know we talked about this quite a bit, and thank you how that last phrasing you put from the family to the community to the race to the nation. That was it. Brother Carlos, you want to give a closing comment in terms of your concluding thoughts, please?
First of all I can say to what the sister just said is Ashe. That's all I can say concerning that. Yes, without a doubt, turning things around, and I think I had mentioned that earlier, is the first thing that we have to do, which is where the sister is coming from, is that we have to recognize what the problem is. And that means you have to understand that we're sick. If you don't first understand that, you can never get to the point to where you can begin to heal or repair what is ill within you. And like the sister said, a lot of that starts with the individual and who you are. And again, I tie that back into the spiritual and your natural place is that once you get into the true spirituality and get back to the true nature of who we are as a people, all that the sister just spoke about will start to fall into place and start to come together the way it's supposed to. So we reach that balance and be able to reclaim our place in history as well.
Thank you very much. And before that music starts playing, I'm looking at the clock. I want to thank Sister McMillion and Brother Carlos Carr, and I'm going to work something out with Brother Delani that next time we have you guys on, and hopefully moving down the road, we can have an hour or an hour and a half show, an hour and a half to 2 hour show, so we can expand our thoughts. Because again, this is a lot to put into 1 hour. I want to thank you both for coming on this Thursday night. Our men think to address this serious issue, and we will have continuing conversations moving forward. I want to thank our Harambe guests, our Harambe family for listening in tonight. Sister Anna, I will talk to you soon. Brother Carlos, thank you very much for coming on board. And I want to greet you both good night and good night to our Harambe family. I will talk to you guys on next week.